the Dream 100 Show. The epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 13 of the Dream 100 Show. So over the last 2 weeks, I've started talking through deploying the Dream 100 for the Dream 100 company. And I'm doing that because I want to talk through where I'm getting stuck, and if I'm leading the brand, teaching the brand, own the brand, and I'm getting stuck on certain things, I want to talk through where I'm getting stuck and how I'm overcoming that so that you can too. So it's been very interesting the last 2 weeks because this whole concept around 10x is easier than 2x, which is what I talked about on last week's episode. I have thrown a lot of my 2024 plans out the window. And that's not just in this business, but in my marketing agency, for example. Our plan was to double in size. And essentially, the plan was double in size by doubling the amount of clients that we're working with. And it's interesting because I thought that was a great plan, and here's how we're going to hit those objectives, until I read the book, or listened to the book rather, 10x is easier than 2x, and started to realize that I was having 2x levels of conversation and 2x levels of thinking. And as I started thinking about what could 10x look like, I realized that there's a lot of things that I need to stop doing, and there's a lot of things that we need to start doing. So we're literally in the midst of all this right now, and I will let you know in coming episodes of what ends up changing at my other businesses as a result of that thinking. And the interesting thing, though, is the Dream 100 is now front and center at my marketing agency, in addition to the Dream 100 being front and center as to how do I reinvigorate the Dream 100 brand here. So all roads lead back to the Dream 100. And one of my realizations was that I can't be the one that's doing all of the heavy lifting. And as much as I love to be in the weeds with looking at like the email scraping and kind of all that stuff, I can't be the one that's going in and logging into the software tools and doing all that. So my pitch is that this is why the Dream 100 business exists, among many other reasons, is we actually can deploy this exact strategy for you. So for very, very few of you, even though I'm teaching you the strategies, it makes a lot more sense for you to engage a company like ours to deploy it for you. So there's my little soft pitch, and we will formally announce the Done For You Dream 100 program, as well as the brand new tool before the year is up. So if I go back to last week when we were going through it, and I realized that the names that I had on there that I was thinking were going to be my Dream 100 partnerships were not necessarily all wrong, but I was missing a lot of people. And the reason that started to come up again was the audiobook, 10x is easier than 2x. Because I realized that while those Dream 100 relationships could 2x the business, I wanted to make sure that I also was thinking even bigger to say, well, what if one of those relationships could 10x the business? So I know that I've taught you that a Dream 100 partnership, a Dream 100 relationship, has to have the ability to ideally double the size of your business. So if you're doing $500,000 as a roofing business, a Dream 100 relationship, let's say it's a builder, for example, they have to have the ability to send you at least $500,000 in new business. So they just double the size of your business from one relationship. Now that's great, and who wouldn't want that? But my challenge to myself and to you is to also, as you're working on these names, before you start all the outreach, is to think about, are there some people that could 10x your business? Now, before you can find those people, you need to really take a hard look at your business. So let's stick with the roofer as an example. And with everything, I do niches completely ad lib. I don't like to have anything prepared. It keeps me on my feet, keeps me young. So if I were to take a 2x level of thinking, it would be great. How could I expand and how could I do 2x the amount of roofs that I did this year? And that would mean, okay, great, I'm going to need more crews, more trucks, more leads. But if I were to have a builder and they were to give me a bunch of roofs, and great, they're going to give us 100 roofs at $5,000 each during the course of the year. Great thing with that is that it's more kind of controlled growth depending on where you're located. And that's great. The challenge is that nothing has necessarily changed inside of your business. So what I want you to think about in the coming weeks is there something that would need to change about your product or service that would make it easier for you to 10x? Example, great, you doubled because you landed a Dream 100 relationship, which was a local home builder. Well, what if you were to find all the roofing companies locally and you were to acquire one of them or several of them? What if you were to start other businesses and instead of just doing roofs, you're doing gutters, kitchens, epoxy, so that one relationship was worth $5,000 to you in terms of that household, so the end customer. But now your end customer is now worth $25,000 or $50,000 on average because you do the roof, but then you have all these other ancillary businesses where you're able to upsell, cross-sell, refer business, etc. So now instead of, again, just having that average sale of $5,000, it went up exponentially. The reason that I want you to think long and hard about your product and your service is that to become a 10x version of where things are today requires massively different thinking. And that's really what's doing a bit of a mind fill in the blank to me, is that I thought I had it all figured out for next year. And I thought we were just going to double what we were currently doing. But then I started saying, well, what if we were to upsize the relationship? So for us at the agency, as an example, we're going to launch additional businesses that we can serve the same market. So instead of getting, I'll just pick numbers, $2,000 a month for a marketing relationship, maybe it's going to be $10,000 because we can offer all these other products and services. So without having to massively do more on the front end to acquire that customer, we've now upsold, cross-sold, etc. One of my clients from many, many, many years ago was an author, speaker, coach. And he had a business that was serving nurses. And what they did was they had an insurance company that was serving nurses. And initially, they would get the nurses after they left school and they would register and get their insurance. So what he did was he got in front of that. He started going to colleges and selling the insurance in different things during college. So he was getting them before all the other companies could grab them. But then what he did to have massive growth was started, bought, or acquired all the other businesses that were complementary to that audience that he had. So now he's selling all these other things. So instead of the relationship being $1,000 a year, now it's a $10,000 a year relationship. So I want you to think long and hard a little bit more about your business, the strategy that you're thinking of deploying, so that as you make this list, that you know you have the right people. So as I've talked about some of the different mistakes that people make, the biggest one is selecting the wrong people. So you really want to make sure that you are sound on your growth strategy the next couple of years. Because if your growth strategy is to kind of grow slowly, that's fine. But my challenge to you is to listen to the book or read the book 10x is easier than 2x, and you're going to realize that why couldn't I go from $500,000 to $5 million over X amount of time rather than just adding another $500,000 in business, which still would be great, by the way. So what I encountered over the last couple of days was I started getting stuck on finding the personal email addresses of some of these Dream 100 contacts. So there were several different tools that I was using, and I started to get in my head a little bit of, well, I don't have these personal emails. Now, a lot of the emails that I was going after trying to get were very, very high level CEOs. So as I talked on the last episode, I realized that not only do we want to be helping high level, high performing entrepreneurs, that we want to be working with some bigger corporations that want to deploy the Dream 100 in their organization. For example, one of the companies that I used to do some marketing work with is in the B2B sector, and they're a $3 billion a year company. They could write a very, very large check if I were to be able to train them, teach, help, execute a strategy that adds tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, that's a pretty large check they could write, rather than if I'm helping somebody go from $1 million to $5 million. Now, I get a lot more enjoyment out of helping the small, growing, aspiring entrepreneurs than I do helping these huge businesses, because they're already huge. But if I want to look at reality of how can I really throw some gasoline on the fire, it would be adding some of these bigger businesses. And for me, I started tripping myself up. Now, it was because I couldn't find their emails, but what I started doing was flip-flopping between the two audiences. So if you recall, there are 3 different audiences that we're going to pick. And we're going to pick one of the audiences to start with. You never want to go after all 3 at the same time. So one of them is going after your Dream 100 prospects. So that would be, for me, like going after the CEO of Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Disney, for example. That would be the end person that I would end up working with, this big corporation. The second audience would be somebody that has all those people already on their audience or on their list or in their network that I could work with that would refer me. So those were different people that I found that were speaking to corporations and writing books that targeted corporations. So like David Goggins, for example. I've read all his books. We have a connection because he was from the Buffalo, New York area, though he didn't have great memories, because if you know his story, talking about his father and all that kind of crazy stuff. So don't have great memories, but we have a little bit of a connection there. But I don't have a connection to him personally. But he works with all these other corporations. The third audience is press, so PR, and for this business, it's going after the editors at all the big magazines, Fortune, Inc., Fast Company, etc. But what I started doing when I was doing the research was I started flip-flopping between going down rabbit holes of, well, let's just see if I could find the CEO of Pepsi's email address. And then, let's see if I could find David Goggins' best contact information. And I didn't realize it until I was really kind of in the weeds of, well, geez, I'm flip-flopping a lot here. So what I ended up doing was I stopped going after the rabbit hole of looking for those corporations and rather focusing again on the partnerships. And I've taught the same strategy to you of that always is the first strategy that I recommend. And the reason is that it's going to take a lot of time to execute this strategy regardless. But wouldn't it be easier, and I'm saying easier with air quotes, if I got in with somebody that already had these relationships that could have the potential to not just send me one relationship, but multiple relationships? So if I were to work the connections and work this Dream 100 of these partners, they could open up the keys to the castle. They could open up and say, well, yeah, I've worked with these 200 Fortune 1000 companies. I think that these 3 would be the best introductions first. And then, boom, you've got a relationship a relationship, a relationship. You execute well, so you make them look good. You give them some kind of referral commission if it's legal and appropriate. Typically, in those instances, it's not. So you really have to build that relationship with that Dream 100 partner. And then you continue to rinse and repeat. It would be a lot more effort for me to go after the CEOs, the VPs, the chief marketing officers of all the Fortune 1000, because I might end up landing some of them eventually, but I would much rather land the partners. So that was the first thing that tripped me up that I wanted to let you know of, and let you know the decision that I made is to focus on the partners. The second thing that again started to trip me up was that I wasn't able to find as many of the personal emails, even though I have all of these different software tools. But what I realized is we're not as concerned about the email address right out of the gate. We're much more interested in the social media aspect and wanting to be able to look and observe. So what I've done the last couple of days is we've got our list of these Dream 100 relationships. And personally, we decided to kind of split it roughly 50-50. So 50 or so of the relationships are focused on, we have the Dream 100 software that we're going to be re-rolling out. And they're focused on that. So more of kind of entrepreneurs and people that kind of teach people how to grow a business. So Russell Brunson, Dan Kennedy, Billy Jean is marketing, Justin Brook, Ryan Dice, Ryan Lee. So internet marketing people similar to myself, but people that are more on the training side, that they can say, great, meet my friend Michael Tasner. They've got the Dream 100 software, and they have these big databases that they could then earn referral commissions on each and every single month. They're used to these kinds of relationships. So that's roughly 50% of the list. The second 50% of the list are these people that have the Fortune 1000 relationships already. And we started finding even meeting planners. We've went down rabbit holes of people that book high-level meeting space. And what we found was once we were able to go to their LinkedIn and find some of these relationships, we then really started scouring their LinkedIn to look at some of the other people that they're connected to, we're connected to. And we're not going to deploy the corny strategy of, hey, I see that we have connections in common. Like, I hate those messages. They don't work. They're garbage. Hey, Michael, I see we both are in XYZ Facebook group. Like, that's cold email type of stuff. This is more higher level. But what we found was that as we started really digging deeper and deeper into these people's LinkedIn accounts, that started giving us other names that we didn't think of. And then that rabbit hole went to a different rabbit hole. And when we finished, we actually had almost 200 names. So we had 200, and then we started to whittle it down, and we're down to I think it's 125. And the reason, again, we're doing 125 is that we expect some attrition, some that are a no, potentially right out of the gate. If we get that really, really hard no, don't contact me again. We don't continue the relationship. We remove them. So we want to have a little bit of a buffer. But we found LinkedIn was still the best platform. We were able to easily find 90+% of personal Facebooks, 100% we were able to find of all their business accounts. So some of these people did not have personal Facebook accounts, even though we looked at multiple different names and iterations and things like that. 100% of the people had an account on LinkedIn. Maybe 99%. I think there was one person that didn't have an account on LinkedIn. And that started to open up the keys. We then went down, we looked for Instagram, we looked for TikTok. I think we have 74 of these. We have Twitter accounts. So we have a really nice overview. So over the next week, now what I'm going to do is start digging deeper and deeper into every one of these relationships, looking at their social media, studying things so that I can report back and say, what are some of my findings? And this is all before I've even sent a single message, a single tweet, single comment. We decided on our business model. We retooled things a bit. We agreed to go after the partners. And then we gathered their names, whittled the names down. And I whittled it down based on who we had all their social media stuff to. So if they're more active on social media, size, but also some people that we felt would be an extreme reach, some that we felt we could still achieve some success with. But we also kept the other 75 names as a backup. But I'm not going to start going after 200. We're going to focus on those initial 125, and that those names, again, they'll whittle down a little bit to be in and around that 100 mark. But that's the progress that we've made. Now, again, this upcoming week, it's going to be the digital stalking, learning about them, and then I can start to use that to talk through how I'm crafting my messages, when I start commenting, how I'm commenting, and all of that great stuff. Keep tuning in. Leave your questions, comments, thoughts. Share this out. I greatly appreciate you. Have a wonderful upcoming holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus. Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays to whatever you practice. Have a great rest of your day. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See ya.